She vanished overnight and left me a letter that said she'd betrayed me. 40 years later, her son stood on my porch with an urn and asked if I was his father. Hey folks, it's Ray Whitaker here, and you're watching After Her Lies. Before I get into it, I've got to say this up front because it actually stings. 96% of you who watch these stories aren't subscribed. 96. I'm a retired guy talking into a little camera in my den, and I pour my whole heart into these, and it makes me sad to see that number. So please, if you end up sticking around, hit subscribe, tap the like button, and leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever had a love you couldn't shake. All right, deep breath. Let me take you back. I was 19 the first time I saw Charlotte Pierce. Everybody called her Lottie. It was the summer of '77 in Dayton, Ohio. I was earning union wages at the GM plant and thought that meant I knew everything about the world. She came in the door of the Maple Lanes bowling alley wearing a denim jacket with a little iron-on strawberry patch over the pocket and carrying a camera that looked way too expensive for a girl who was bussing tables at the diner next door. The lights of the lanes made everything glossy. Somebody put on Fleetwood Mac, and you could smell rented shoes and cheap beer. She could have walked straight through the place and out into the night, and I would have followed her without looking left or right. She didn't walk straight through. She sat in the plastic seat next to my number 4 lane, where I was pretending I knew how to bowl and not thinking about anything except whether my baby brother would get out of the army in one piece. You bowl like a truck driver, she said, and then she smiled like it wasn't an insult. I told her that was accurate and asked about the camera. She said she was saving for a bus ticket to Chicago to study photography as soon as she could. I told her my Oldsmobile could make it to Chicago just fine. We both laughed. It was easy. Everything about her was easy. We were inseparable for a year, and I mean inseparable as in I can still tell you the smell of her shampoo and the exact squeak our booth at Delfino's made when she slid in across from me. That's what sticks. Not the big headline moments, but the stupid small ones. She lived in a little apartment behind the diner, the kind of place where the window unit rattled like a truck idling, and she taped her photographs to the wall instead of framing them. She took pictures of everything, the plant whistle at dawn, the way my hands got black under the nails, my mother's Sunday roast steaming in the winter light. I can hear some of you asking me to get to the betrayal, but you don't understand the fall unless you really understand the climb. The first lie she told me wasn't even to me. It was to the waitress at the diner. We'd stayed too long at our table, and the manager was giving us the eye, and Lottie said, same as breathing, "My uncle's picking me up," and tilted her head toward the door like she actually expected a man to come in. I knew she didn't have an uncle in Dayton. She winked at me as if lies were just tiny nudges to keep life from knocking us over. That look said, "Don't worry, I've got us." I didn't know then that she carried a whole sack of lies like that, and they weren't all harmless. In January of '79, my dad slipped on a patch of ice and fell off the stepladder, shattered his hip. That's when I moved back into my folks' place for a while to help. If I could change one thing about my life, it would be that I didn't let the space between me and Lottie grow during those months. We talked a lot, but 2 people talking on the phone is not the same as 2 people on the same couch passing the same bowl of popcorn back and forth. The last night I saw her before everything fell apart, she pressed a photograph into my hand. It was me walking away from her, not knowing she was taking the picture. She'd written on the back, "Come back to me." That was the last truth for a long time. She was gone the next morning. Her room cleared, camera gone. A single coffee mug in the sink with a lipstick kiss, half rubbed off, and a little circle of grounds at the bottom. There was an envelope slid under the door of my olds at my parents' house. It wasn't even sealed, just tucked. Inside was a note in her handwriting. I can recite it now without looking. "Ray, please don't come looking. I haven't been honest about who I am. I've been seeing someone else. It's bad. It's all on me. I'm sorry. L. I read it sitting in that cold driveway, with my breath smoking white in front of my face. Seeing someone else. That's the part that hammered me like a punch. I drove straight to the diner, straight to Maple Lanes, straight to the landlord on 5th Street. She'd left an hour before sunrise and told no one anything. The world looked exactly the same as it had the day before, which felt like an insult. I know now that when your life cracks open, the world doesn't care enough to stop spinning. I'm not going to give you some cool story about how I tracked her down because I didn't. My mother made a pot roast and told me I'd find a nice girl who didn't disappear with the camera money. My dad said, in his way, that if a dog runs off, you don't chase it. You let it come to you if it's coming at all. Those were people of their time. I went to work, I did my shifts, and I built a life around the empty seat where she was supposed to be. That's the honest truth. In '83, I married a woman named Marianne. She had brown hair and a loud laugh, and she loved me with a steady patience that I did not deserve. We had 3 years that were pretty good. Then we had 10 years that were just okay. If you've ever loved somebody who's still in love with a ghost, you know what that looks like. She would catch me staring at the wall like I was trying to read something written there, and I'd say I was thinking about the lawnmower. That was a lie. We divorced in '96. It was decent. We made coffee at the kitchen table and agreed to stop hurting each other slowly. That's a whole other story for another time. This one jumps to 2004, when my mother died and I cleaned out her house. She'd kept everything. Every report card, every warranty card, the instructions for appliances we didn't have anymore. In her bottom dresser drawer, beneath a stack of handkerchiefs, I found an envelope with my name on it in Lottie's handwriting. It was sealed. The postmark was March of '79. I know some of you are going to judge my mother. I did too for a while. The envelope was addressed to my parents' house, and she had quietly tucked it away and never said a word. I don't know what her reason was. Protecting me, punishing Lottie, or maybe it slipped into the drawer and just never got mentioned. I tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a letter that was not the letter she'd left on my olds. This one was long. It said she'd had to leave because someone dangerous was asking questions about her, about me, about who I talked to and where I worked. It said she was pregnant. She didn't say with my child, but she didn't have to. She told me she was scared, and that a man from the government had told her the best way to keep me safe was to cut me off like a limb you can't save. She said, "I'm going to tell you I've been seeing someone else. Please hate me. Please don't find me. Don't let them hurt you because of me." And at the end, she wrote, "If there's a kinder world beyond this, I will find you there and tell you the truth. And tell..." There was a Polaroid folded inside the letter. A baby's foot. That was all. Just a little foot, pale, wrinkled, curled toes. I put the letter back in the envelope like that would undo the burn it had put in my chest. I didn't tell anyone about it. I kept it in my top dresser drawer where a person keeps things they don't want to look at but can't throw away. I tried to find her then. I really did. I called the diner. I dug into old records. I even asked an old friend who'd become a cop what you do if someone disappears and you want to find them. He said, "You let them be disappeared unless it's a crime." That was his advice. I took it, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. Years went by. I took early retirement when the plant started shedding positions. I moved into a smaller place. I learned to cook better than my mother. I started this channel because I had more truth than I had people to tell it to. And I've always believed that if you speak your stories out loud, they stop being sharks under the water and start being fish you can see. I called it After Her Lies because I thought a title needs to be honest, and lies are what made me. I don't mean only hers. I mean mine too. The lies you tell yourself to make a day go down smooth. Now we jump again to 2019. It was early March in Ohio, the kind where the snow starts to show the dirt under it, and you can almost believe in spring if you squint. I was making coffee in my kitchen in my robe. The doorbell rang at 7:40 a.m., and I do not get early visitors. There was a man on my porch with a beard and a good coat and eyes that looked like my eyes look in the mirror when I've been up all night worrying about nothing. He was carrying a canvas bag. He said, "Ray Whitaker?" I nodded, and he swallowed like his throat hurt. He said, "My mother was Ellen Brooks, and she asked me to find you." Then he hesitated and added, "She was Charlotte Pierce before that." I don't remember walking to the couch. I don't remember inviting him in. I remember the weight of the bag when he put it in my lap. It was heavier than it should have been. He said, "I'm Nate. She told me to bring you this when she passed. She died last month. Cancer. It was fast." I opened the bag. There's no way to prepare yourself for the moment an urn touches your hands. Even if you didn't get to keep her in life, you get to keep her in a ridiculous aluminum cylinder. There was also a smaller envelope, very white, with my name in the same hand as the letter from 1979. Her hand hadn't lost its slant. I put the urn on the coffee table like it could break. I opened the letter. She said she had a son, Nathaniel. She said she told him stories about his father, but kept the name from him until he was old enough to choose for himself. She said she had married a man named Paul Brooks, and he was decent and kind, and he loved Nate like his own. She didn't say it, but I knew from the shape of her sentences that Paul was the government man. She said that the danger had passed years ago, but the new name felt like it had grown into her bones. She never came back for me because she didn't think I'd forgive her, and she didn't think she'd survive the shame if I didn't. She said, "If you still want to blame me, I won't ask you not to. If you want to scatter me anywhere, scatter me where you last believed in me." I asked the man on my couch his age. 40. He answered without offense. He did the math at the same time I did. He told me he had 2 daughters, and then he laughed at himself for telling me that right away. He said he had come from Michigan, where he worked at a public radio station. He said his mother had told him I was stubborn and a better cook than I let on. Every sentence he said was a thread, pulling me closer to a life I hadn't had. He looked at my hands, like a person looks at clues. Do you want to know the first thing I felt? You'd think it would be joy, grief, shock. It was fury. I wanted to know why I'd been made into a ghost in my own story. I wanted to know why my mother had tucked away that letter, why the government man hadn't found a better way than lopping off my heart and letting me bleed out for 40 years. Nate let me rant a little. He said, she was 19 and scared. They told her you'd be safer angry than engaged. That's the word he used, like it was a wire they'd cut to keep a house from catching fire. He added, Paul didn't want to do it to you. He said his mother used to sit at the kitchen table at night with the light off, listening to the quiet like it could bring me back. He had a box of tapes, cassette tapes. I hadn't seen one in years. She'd recorded them for herself, I guess, or for me, though she never sent them. We sat for hours, playing her voice into my living room like a pirate radio station that had accidentally come in clear. She talked about a baby who wouldn't sleep unless she carried him to the window and bounced just so. She talked about how to make cornbread in a new oven that ran hot. She said my name sometimes, testing it like a tooth that hurt. Once she said I lied to him so I wouldn't have to watch him get hurt for me. And then she said, I think it still might be the worst thing I ever did. We took a break to breathe. He asked me if I wanted to know for sure. He meant paternity, science, swabs, and percentages. I told him we could do it if he wanted it. He said he didn't, that it didn't matter. Then he said it would keep his wife from asking questions forever, and we both laughed for the first time. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was relief that the room still let laughter in. We did the test the next day. Weeks later, the number came back and proved what we already knew. He was mine. I say that without shame now. He is my son. I took him to Maple Lanes. It's still there. New carpet, same layout. We had a beer in those plastic cups that taste faintly like soap. I told him the whole story because I needed it in the air there. I took him to Delfino's, which is a taco joint now, and we sat in the corner where our booth used to squeak and didn't order anything nostalgic because no one makes meatloaf like they used to, and there's no point pretending. I took him to the parking lot of my parents' old house and told him about the cold driveway and the first letter and the Polaroid of the foot. He has his mother's face when he's concentrating, and he had it that day. There's a twist in this story that still sits uncomfortable in my chest. It's about the man in the middle, the one I built out of hate to give my heartbreak a face, Paul Brooks. I imagined him as a thief. I imagined him as a liar who collected women he could save and put them on a shelf. Nate didn't let me keep that fantasy. He brought me a stack of letters Paul had written to his mother while he was on assignment, the ones she'd saved under the socks. Paul didn't steal. He covered. He married her because witness protection doesn't always give you a husband. But the cover did in their case, and real feelings trailed behind the pretend ones, like a shadow following a body. He raised a boy. He changed light bulbs. He took his shoes off at the door, and he paid the gas bill, and he got up at 3 a.m. with colic. He died of pancreatic cancer in 2011, fast and mean. To hate him would be to lie again. I'll leave hating to younger men with time to waste. Here's another thing. I told you my mother had tucked away that second letter in her drawer. After Nate's visit, I went back through everything I saved that day. Every brittle recipe card and church bulletin. In the pocket of my mother's old winter coat, folded into the smallest possible square, there was a page ripped from a stenographer's pad. It was a phone number and a note. Girl came by, said, "Do not give this to Ray until 1985. I failed, I know. Don't tell him I cried. The number had no area code, and even if it had, it would have been dust by then. My mother had written a date at the bottom in her careful schoolteacher script. March 12th, 1979. The day the letter came. So she had seen Lottie, or Lottie had come by the house, or my mother was trying to take the wheel of fate with her own small hands, and she drove us both into the ditch. She wasn't a villain. She was a mother who believed teenagers can survive losing love better than they can survive getting shot in a parking lot. I believe that too, if I'm honest. Nate stayed 2 days. We went to the cemetery, and he put his hand on my father's headstone and said the Lord's Prayer in a way that made me believe in plain words again. We didn't talk about what we were going to be to each other. We went to the river at dawn and scattered some of her ashes where the fog lifts like something waking up slow. We didn't do all of them there. He said his mother had asked to be everywhere she'd been loved. That's what he called it. A map of being loved. We sent some into the wind behind Maple Lanes. We tucked a little into the dirt under the maple in my backyard, and I told her out loud that if there is a kinder world beyond this, I hope she knows I would have forgiven her sooner if I'd been more clever. Twist number whatever we're not counting is that he listened to my stories on this channel before he ever knew my name. He told me that on the second night, watching the blue light of the TV bounce off the photo frames. He said he'd put in earbuds while he washed dishes after his kids went to bed, and he'd listen to my voice talk about a girl with a camera at a bowling alley and feel like he was being handed pieces of a puzzle and didn't know there was a picture on the box. His wife is the one who told him to go to the courthouse and unseal what he could. He said he heard me say the name Maple Lanes and thought, how many bowling alleys in Ohio called Maple Lanes can there be? He found the address. He found the city directory from the 70s, and there I was. My own loose tongue turned on me and saved me at the same time. We did the day-to-day work after he left. That's what people don't talk about in stories like this. You think you get to the big reveal and the credits roll. But if you keep living, there's laundry and birthdays and waiting at the mechanic for an oil change while you text a picture of a spark plug to a man who has your chin and he replies with a joke about not knowing what that is. His girls call me Ray, and then Pap Ray, and then just Pap. If you're about my age, you know there's a sweetness the world gives you with grandchildren that feels like an apology for all the times you didn't understand anything when you were young. We sit on the porch and watch fireflies, and I teach them how to snap beans. And they tell me how their teacher says the word cafeteria wrong. I kept one of the tapes. The rest I gave back to him because you can't hoard someone's mother. The one I kept is labeled July 1980 in blue ink. On it, she reads a poem she wrote herself, nothing fancy, about a boy who laughs in his sleep and a man who doesn't know the boy exists. That's me, if I have to say it out loud. Her voice in that tape is slow in the middle, quick on the ends. I hear the little catch on the word sleep, and I put my hand on the counter, like I have to brace myself. I don't play it all the time. I play it when the winter light looks like it used to look in her apartment, when the radiator knocks and the house smells like something in the oven. I play it when I need to forgive someone who can't hear me. There's one last twist, and then I'll let you go. Write your comments. 2 years ago, last April, I was at the Kroger buying flour. A woman touched my sleeve and asked if I was Ray Whitaker from the internet. I told her I was, apologized for not being better looking in person, and she smiled the way people smile when they've decided to be kind to you, whether you deserve it or not. She said her name was Marie, and that her mother had worked the night shift at the diner in the 70s. She said her mother told her on her last day before moving south that she'd once watched a girl write a letter to a boy on the back of a menu and cry like her face had forgotten how to do anything else. She asked if I wanted the menu. She had it in her purse. She'd come to the store because her mother kept that menu tucked in her Bible for 30 years and asked to have it given back if anybody ever found the boy who loved the girl with the camera. I brought it home in a bag with the flour and bread and a jar of pickles. It smells like grease and ink. The letter isn't complete. It's bits, like the sound cutting in and out on a bad station. I'm sorry I have to be the storm, she wrote in ballpoint on the list of specials. I'm sorry I couldn't be brave in any way besides leaving. I know some of you watching will want a moral or a rule you can follow, so you don't end up in a version of this. I don't have one. All I have is this. Loving somebody doesn't mean you get to keep them in the way you want to. And being lied to doesn't mean you only ever get to be the victim in your own story. Some lies are daggers. Some are bandages that stick to the wound and hurt when you peel them off and you still need them anyway. Do I wish she'd done it differently? I wish. Do I forgive her? I do in the ways I know how. Do I wish I had a son I'd known through Little League and broken arms and driver's ed? More than anything. Do I feel lucky to have him now? Like a man who found water after walking too long with no map. A few weeks after Nate's first visit, we took that last little bit of her ashes to Maple Lanes at midnight, because the manager is a friend now, and he let us in to do something stupid. We set a lane for her. Just the one ball, a cheap one, bright blue, 8 pounds. We stood there like fools. A gray-haired man and a 42-year-old with a beer belly forming, both of us trying not to cry. I sent that ball down the wood, and it slid true as a miracle. I swear to you, the sound of those pins falling is the best sound I've heard in my life. We scattered the ashes with a flick of the wrist, where the ball disappears into the machine. Then we went home and slept like we had done something worth doing. You see me here in my den with my little microphone and my stack of notes that I don't use because I always tell it plain in the end. I could dress this up. I could make her the villain or make myself the hero. I could tell you Paul Brooks was a thief and my mother a jailer. It's harder but better to say we were people doing the best we could with what we had, and sometimes we were wrong. I didn't get back the years I lost. No one does. But I got the rest of them, and that's enough for a man like me. If you've listened this far, thank you. If you're one of the 96% who watch and don't subscribe, please fix that. It's free, and it helps more than you know. Hit subscribe to After Her Lies. Tap the like button if this meant anything to you. And tell me in the comments if you ever carried a truth in your pocket so long it wore a hole and fell through. I read what you write. I sit with your stories. And next week I'll be back with another one, because I've learned that the only way to live after somebody lies to you is to keep telling the truth, even if your voice shakes.